2 days ago, Iran's foreign minister stood in front of the cameras and told the entire planet that the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow stretch of water that carries one out of every 5 barrels of oil on Earth, was completely open. Ships could pass. Commerce could flow. The biggest choke point in the global economy was back open. Within minutes, oil prices collapsed. Over 11%, wiped off the board in a single afternoon. It was the second biggest one-day drop since this war began. Stock markets jumped. Analysts celebrated. Headlines across every major network said the same thing. The crisis is over. Iran just folded. The war might finally be ending. And then something very strange happened. Nothing. Not a single oil tanker left the Persian Gulf. The ship tracking radars, the ones that watch every vessel on Earth in real time, showed a map that looked exactly the same as it did the day before. A handful of small ships inched through, but the supertankers, the ones that actually move the world's oil, the ones that determine whether you pay $4 a gallon or $7 a gallon at the pump next month, those ships did not move. They sat in port. They waited. Because Iran had just pulled off something almost nobody in the Western press is willing to say out loud. In the span of a single sentence, Iran proved to the world it can move global oil prices up or down by tens of billions of dollars, on command, just by opening its foreign minister's mouth. And the United States, with 11 aircraft carriers, the most powerful navy on Earth, and a president who promised to end this war in weeks, couldn't do a single thing to stop it. The story you are being told is that Iran backed down, that the pressure finally worked, that the American military is winning. What actually happened is the opposite, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Here is what the timeline looked like, hour by hour, and this is where it gets interesting. On Friday morning, Iran's foreign minister, a man named Abbas Araghchi, walked up to a microphone in Tehran and said the exact words every oil trader on Wall Street had been waiting to hear for weeks. He said the Strait of Hormuz, the single most important piece of water on the planet, was declared completely open for all commercial ships. Every tanker, every cargo vessel, anyone who wanted to move oil could now move oil. Oil traders panicked. They had bet heavy that prices would stay near $100 a barrel for weeks to come. The moment Araghchi finished speaking, they started dumping their positions all at once. American crude oil, the kind that sets the price of gas at your local station, fell from over $94 a barrel all the way down to just under $84. Over 11% gone in a few hours. If you had $100,000 in oil Thursday night, by Friday afternoon you had around $88,000. That is the scale of what one sentence from Tehran did to the world's most important commodity. And then President Trump saw it. And he was not happy. Within hours, Trump went on his own social media platform and posted a message that contradicted Iran's foreign minister directly. He wrote that the American blockade of Iranian ports would continue, that U.S. warships were not going anywhere, that the pressure on Iran would stay exactly where it was. In other words, Iran can say whatever it wants. The Strait of Hormuz is not actually open. The American Navy decides who moves. Now, here is the part that the cable news networks rushed past. Within the same day, Iranian state media walked back their own foreign minister's statement. They said he had, and these are their exact words, misspoken. They clarified that only civilian ships approved directly by Iran's Revolutionary Guard, traveling through specific routes chosen by Tehran, would actually be allowed through. In other words, the strait is open, but only if Iran says you can go. And by the way, the Revolutionary Guard commander went on television and announced that control of the Strait of Hormuz had, quote, returned to its previous state, meaning Iran runs it again. Stop and think about what just happened in that 48-hour window. Iran opened the strait. The world believed them. Global oil markets lost what some estimates put at over $200 billion of value in a few hours. Then Iran closed it again. Then the American president said the blockade continues. Then the Iranian military said, actually, we are the ones in control, and always were. And during all of this chaos, the ships that actually carry the oil did not move. The tracking data showed it plain as day. A few small vessels trickled through, but every real supertanker, the kind that holds 2 million barrels of crude, stayed right where it was, bobbing in the water, waiting. Because those captains know something that most viewers at home do not know. They know that whatever the politicians are saying on camera, the reality on the water has not changed one single bit. They are not going to risk a billion-dollar ship and a crew of 40 men on a press conference. Now here is where your own life comes into the story. Because this is not some faraway problem happening to somebody else. This is your gas station, your grocery store, your electric bill this summer. About 1 out of every 5 barrels of oil on Earth passes through this narrow strip of water between Iran and Oman. When those barrels cannot move, the price goes up everywhere. When oil goes up, gasoline goes up. When gasoline goes up, trucking goes up. When trucking goes up, every single thing in your grocery store goes up. Bread, milk, eggs, chicken, your heating bill this winter, your electric bill, your plane tickets, your packages, all of it. And the lesson of what happened on Friday afternoon is that the person in charge of whether those prices go up or down is not the President of the United States. It is not the Federal Reserve. It is not even the CEO of a major oil company. It is a man named Abbas Araghchi, sitting in an office in Tehran, who can make or lose ordinary working people hundreds of billions of dollars with a single sentence. And the American military, for all of its power, cannot stop him from saying those sentences. That is the real story of this week. It tells us who is actually winning this war, no matter what the morning shows say. But it didn't end there. Because while all of this was playing out, there was a third actor in the room that the Western press barely mentioned: China. China is the largest buyer of Iranian oil on the planet. Full stop. Iran sells more crude oil to China than it sells to any other country. Over 60% of China's total energy comes in by ship, and about half of that sails directly through the Strait of Hormuz. When you block the Strait of Hormuz, you do not just hurt Iran, you hurt China. And China is not going to sit quietly while the American Navy chokes off its fuel supply. Just a few days ago, Beijing's foreign ministry put out a statement that shocked diplomats around the world. They called the American blockade, and these are the exact words, dangerous and irresponsible. Then they went further. They announced that Chinese ships would continue moving through the Strait of Hormuz, blockade or no blockade, because China had existing trade agreements with Iran and fully intended to honor them. Read that again. The second most powerful country on the planet just announced in broad daylight that it does not recognize the American blockade, that its ships will keep sailing, that the United States Navy can either let them through or start an incident with Chinese vessels. Which, if you know anything about how these things work, is one wrong move away from a direct confrontation between two nuclear powers. And the Pentagon's answer. Here is what the American admiral in charge of the blockade said this week. He said the blockade has deterred 13 ships. 13. Out of the thousands of vessels that were flowing through that strait before this war, 13. That is what a multi-billion-dollar naval blockade powered by the most advanced military hardware on planet Earth has actually accomplished. 13 ships stopped. The rest are either still moving or waiting at anchor or quietly finding new routes under Chinese protection. So let me ask you something directly, and I want to see your answer down in the comments because this is the part that nobody is talking about openly. Do you really think the United States is actually winning this war the way the Sunday morning talk shows tell you it is? Or do you think Iran has figured out how to run the American Navy around in circles with nothing but press conferences and oil traders? Pick a side. Type it in the comments. I read every single one. Let's see who the audience here thinks has the real upper hand, because this is the question that determines what happens to your fuel bill, your grocery bill, and your electric bill over the next 6 months. This is a kitchen table question. Now, while you are thinking about that, here is what else you need to know. The ceasefire that has been holding this whole mess together since April 8th is about to expire. In just 4 days from right now, on April 22nd, the clock runs out. When that clock hits zero, one of 3 things happens. Either the two sides agree to extend it, and everything we just talked about continues. Iran controlling the strait, oil prices bouncing on every word from Tehran, and the American Navy stuck in a very expensive stalemate costing taxpayers billions a month. Or they do not extend it, and the shooting starts again. Or, and this is the one almost nobody is talking about, Iran uses the ceasefire deadline itself to launch something new. Something planned. Something designed to catch the Americans flat-footed at the exact moment they are expected to either re-engage or step back. Because remember, Iran has now had 48 days of active war to study how the American military actually works. They have watched what triggers an American response and what does not. They have tested their missiles against American air defenses. They have mapped every single US base in the region. They know where the aircraft carriers are sitting. They know the supply lines. They know the radar gaps. They have had weeks to prepare, and the last time a ceasefire expired in this region, the side that was supposedly losing used those quiet days to prepare the single biggest military move of the entire war. This is not speculation. This is the historical pattern, and the American intelligence community is openly worried about it. President Trump himself said just days ago that he believes Iran is close to, quote, making a decision. He did not specify what decision, but the list of options is very short. They either accept American terms, which so far they have shown absolutely no interest in doing, or they break the ceasefire in a way that changes the entire shape of the war. Here is what that second option could actually look like in real life. Iran could launch its remaining Sagil missiles, some of the most accurate long-range weapons in its arsenal, against the US 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain, or against Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the largest American military base anywhere outside the continental United States. They could send a swarm of drones against the American aircraft carriers sitting in the Arabian Sea. They could mine the entrance to the Strait of Hormuz. And the American Navy has already admitted in its own public reports that it cannot quickly clear modern Iranian sea mines. Those mines could shut the global oil market down for weeks. They could strike Saudi oil infrastructure and send oil prices right back up to $150 a barrel within hours. Or, and this is the option that keeps the smart analysts awake at night, Iran could do something much more quiet. Toll fees on every ship that passes. Tankers seized for so-called safety inspections. Random delays of 12 hours here, 24 hours there. Each incident too small to justify a full war. All of them together worth billions of dollars a month in lost trade. This is already happening on a smaller scale right now. The only real question is whether it gets much bigger, and in every single one of those scenarios, the person who pays the bill is not the politician in Washington. It is not the politician in Tehran. It is you, the viewer at home. Every single time the price goes up, it comes directly out of your pocket. This is the part of the story that nobody on cable news is willing to say plainly because it makes their own governments look weak. But you deserve to hear it without the sugarcoating. Iran has, in the last 48 days, shown more strategic patience than almost any Western analyst on television predicted. They absorbed the worst airstrikes the United States and Israel could throw at them. They held their coastline. They kept their missile factories running underground. When their top leader was killed in the first week of the war, they replaced him within 48 hours and kept fighting. And now, almost 2 months in, they have figured out how to turn the Strait of Hormuz into an economic weapon that moves markets worth trillions without firing a single bullet on the day they pull the trigger. That is not a losing strategy. Serious people in uniforms all around the world are already studying it very closely. Quietly, because the lesson is uncomfortable for everyone who believed American power alone could force any outcome it wanted. Now here is where I want to ask you the second real question of this video, because this is the one that actually determines how the rest of the year plays out. Before the attack began back in February, most American analysts on every major network said Iran would fold within 2 weeks, that their air defenses were paper, that their missiles were old, that their economy would collapse under sanctions. It has now been almost 7 full weeks. None of that happened. None of it. So do you think the intelligence community inside Washington actually understood Iran before this war started? Or do you think they got the whole thing completely wrong and now they are covering it up with press conferences and Sunday show appearances? I want your answer in the comments. The intelligence community saw this coming, or they completely missed it. Two options. Pick one. I am reading every single answer that comes in, because the next few weeks are going to prove one side right and one side wrong. And the people who saw it coming, the ones who trusted their own instincts instead of the official narrative from the briefing room, are going to be the ones who were prepared for what actually comes next. And there is one more detail that most viewers never hear about on the evening news. The oil market crash on Friday, the 11% drop, was not just regular traders losing money on bets. It included retirement funds, teacher pensions, firefighter pensions, state budgets that depend on oil tax revenue to pay for schools and roads. Some of the biggest investment funds in the world were caught on the wrong side and had to dump everything at once to cover their losses. When you include all of the connected markets and pension funds holding oil stocks, estimated losses run into the range of $200 billion in under 6 hours. $200 billion gone because of one sentence from one man in one city that the United States has been trying to pressure militarily for 7 straight weeks. You tell me who is actually in control here. The smart traders, the ones watching this closely from the beginning, are not betting against Iran anymore. They have been burned too many times in the last 48 days. Every time they expected Iran to collapse, Iran did not. Every time they expected the blockade to break Iranian supply lines, it did not. Every time they expected China or Russia to step away and let the Americans do their work, those countries stepped closer to Tehran instead. Russia offered China a new energy lifeline 3 days ago, specifically designed to cut around American sanctions. China responded with their blockade statement the next morning. The picture is getting clearer by the hour for anyone willing to actually look at it. This is not a war that is almost over. This is a war that is about to enter its most dangerous phase yet, and the ceasefire clock ticks down from 4 days as we speak. So let me leave you with the question that ties this whole story together. Iran said the strait is open, but not a single real tanker has moved. The oil markets lost over $200 billion in 6 hours. The Chinese are openly defying the American blockade. The Pentagon admits it has stopped only 13 ships in weeks of trying. And the ceasefire expires in 4 days. Does that sound like a war the United States is winning? Or does it sound like a war the United States is slowly, quietly, and very expensively losing, while the people at the top keep telling you otherwise? I know what I see in the data. I want to know what you see in the comments below. Drop your answer down there. Tell me what you think happens on April 22nd when the ceasefire ends. And keep your eyes on this channel because in the next few days, this story is going to move faster than anybody on television can keep up with. The moves are already being set up right now in Tehran, Beijing, and Washington. The only real question is which one breaks first. One tanker moves, or one missile flies. And the world looks different the next morning. You decide which one you think is coming first.